Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode in the AI and .NET series. Today, I'm super happy because I'm with Frank and Jordan here. We are going to talk about the super cool set of quick starts that we have. And as usual, let me introduce myself because later you say that you go rogue, you go live, and we don't even know who you are. So my name is Bruno. I'm part of the .NET Advocate team. I'm super happy to be here. And that's it. That's my super quick intro. So, Frank, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Well, I'm Frank, as Bruno says. I'm also a cloud advocate focusing on .NET. And I'm also very happy. So, I feel like I should just say the same, just like when you order at the restaurant, just like same as the previous guy.
And Jordan?
Hey, yeah, I'm Jordan. I'm a product manager on the .NET team focused on .NET and AI. So longtime .NET person, fairly new in the .NET AI space. Some of you may know me from other work in the past in the .NET world, but you can kind of maybe, I think both of you and your experience in this space, I can also sort of be a pretty nice, as I'm onboarding into the team and all these things, a few months in, be a good representation probably of a few folks in the audience as well. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's amazing. Last time I was super happy. Welcome people like today from India, Italy, South Asia, Boston, more. But also someone mentioned that these pop-ups comments are kind of annoying. So if you want to share where you are, we are looking at the comments. So please let us know. I see people from Colombia, but I am going to keep the pop-ups and the comments for Q&As and very, very other ones. I don't want to really disturb the idea of the show because we also want to talk today about quick starts and the whole idea that we have in the back started. I mean, the team created an amazing set of resources there. It's all started kind of an entry point with the blog post. So Frank, are you okay if we share your screen and we start there?
I think Jordan could share a little bit more about why we did stuff before I show it, or we show,
Yeah.
or I can share like how it works, but I feel we should explain.
I could dive in with a real quick summary of what we've been up to, and then we can go straight on into like you've got on the code around here, Frank, would be great. So yeah, .NET and AI. There's been a lot going on in the space for us over the last year. About a year ago, Luis on our team, who you all saw last time, put out some blog posts around a great series around intros to working with .NET and OpenAI and some background around things like what's ChatGPT and how does prompt engineering work in these items. And we built up samples over that time. We've got some great polyglot notebooks. He walked through one in the last time around. There's another set we could go through at some point here. Let you do step-by-step playing around with the .NET and like running different prompts and exploring that space. And what we're working on now is we're actually working on building out with Frank and Bruno and the team our documentation around .NET, having a home for .NET and AI in the Microsoft documentation. And part of that, this first step here is around these quick starts. So they're a nice kind of walkthrough of how to build up from file new console to running a simple console application that shows you some different scenarios of like text summarization, building a chat app. I should share my screen with the blog post here real quick, but
yes, I am sharing the link in the comments right now.
Perfect.
So people can start to take a look here. Let me show it also here.
There we go.
It's a super short one, AKAMS/.NET AI.
Instead of me showing a blog post, open the link.
Yes, you can open the link and do kind of a radio mode. We are going to speak and you can take a look there. But the whole idea there is, as we say, is that, hey, you have everything that you want there in these quick start tutorials to do there. There are 5 ones, which basically super popular scenarios, summarized text, chat applications, and more. And the whole idea is that, hey, this is going to also get us ready for .NET 9. This is also going to help you if you want to learn more at AI. This is a super quick way to do these kind of things. And hey, I'm really happy about this because we were needing something like this in the .NET world. We talk a lot about AI, but we need, okay, I want to see how this works, how I code and more. This is a great place to start.
Exactly. So yeah, you'll see we're putting out more of these things. You'll see more even going into Microsoft Build, which way too soon. Everything I've got to prep working toward that event, but everything you're seeing, these quick starts and such, you can start using today with .NET 8. And we've got some exciting stuff going on with .NET 9 as well that we mentioned roughly in a vision post that we've linked in the blog post here. But with that, that's a quick kind of tee up of what we're up to, and samples, and these quick starts. I don't know if you wanted to dive in and kind of show an example of one of these, Frank.
Yeah, I can do that. You can bring my screen, Bruno. The idea behind a quick start is always kind of a 2 minutes to wow. And the demo when we create them was really, what do we really need? Let's try to kind of remove every line of code we don't need, and like try to strip everything to make it as tiny, as simple as just like a tiny little byte, so like anybody can understand it. But then you still need to deploy things in Azure and stuff like that. It's simple, but can we make it easier? So we decided to go and jump and use the Azure Developer CLI, or the AZD CLI. And now with that, you can have templates. So we did create a template. And now here, I can make it even bigger. Like, that's huge. It's about that size on my screen. Now with one command, I can do AZD init, and I specify the template here. So I could have like -- template, or the shorter version, just -t, and I specify the name of the template. So in their case right now, it's .NET AI Samples. And if you understand quickly, that's also the name of the GitHub repo. So what this command does, it's cloning the repo for us. And I could say, hey, creating an environment, learn. So just like this, I have everything now. Like if I maybe if I do a clear first and do it again. Now I have the full repo on my personal computer. Great. So now to deploy everything in Azure, I already done that because we're live, but I just need to do an AZD up, and it will ask me, hey, where do you want to deploy? And like if the template have some like questions, it will ask you. In our case, we're asking obviously for the subscription, or asking for where do you want to put your, because depending on like what model you want to use, you have different location you could pick. So pick the closest to you. So you have this, and I think that's about it. And after that, it will take about 1 minute, 2 minutes. It's kind of pretty quick because the resource we deploy are limited. It deploys everything, but you don't have to understand like the complexity and the template and everything. It just does everything for you. And when you're done, you just do a AZD, if I can spell it correctly, down, and it will delete everything also. So like it's a quick way to have fun. But in another folder, I already have prepared something, and in that repository, you have, like we said, 5 example that will use different SDK. So that one right now is the Azure.NET SDK, the Azure OpenAI SDK. And I picked the first sample. That one just summarize the code. So I could just do now .NET run. Is it big enough?
A little bigger. Oh, yes.
Okay. So .NET run, I do it, and it will run automatically. I don't have to copy paste any keys, because usually when we work with those system, you need to like get access and everything. It's all done automatically for you during that AZD up. During the deployment, we take those keys, create secrets locally. In the future, we'll probably go and try to go with identity, like just to improve security. But right now, we thought it will be simpler. And just like that, you have it. So like it's kind of a fake dialogue where we say, hey, like this is a long text, summarize it. And like the response at the bottom of my screen say, hey, hiking offer physical fitness, like it just in a few words. And if we look into what the code looked like, we could just go here, and we can see that it's 50 line with a lot of comments and empty spaces. So like it's very few line of codes. And again, let's go bigger. Scroll, bing, bing. Whoa, that's huge. maybe one smaller. Voila. So here we let those here. So if people already have Azure resources, or like maybe like they want to use something existing, they could just override this. But you don't have to do any copy paste, because the AZD, the Azure CLI, the development, when we deploy, we create secrets, and then the app use your secrets. So that's super convenient. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. And then, like in the documentation that comes with the repo or online on Learn, you have every line that is explained. But and then you could say, hey, like, please summarize this following in 20 words. You could say, hey, you know what? I want 5 words. So that's the beauty of it. It's like, it's so simple. It's a tiny little piece of code, and then you can start with it and try different things. And like, hey, can I make it longer? What if I take a text that is in French or like in different languages? Would it still work? What if you could start playing with it? So that was the idea behind those quick start. Kind of make it as easy as possible, as fast as possible, for someone to say, now I understand. I know I can implement that in my solution. That was the idea.
Now, Frank, if you don't have access to Azure OpenAI, do these also work with OpenAI directly?
Yes. We have documentation in the GitHub repo that explain how to do that, but it's like one line, I think, to change, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, usually you drop the OpenAI endpoint, I think it is, and then we put then you put the OpenAI key, and the deployment name's like the model name that you use, I think, with OpenAI usually, right?
Yeah, and like if you're using OpenAI directly, then like you don't even need to do the AZD up. So you could just do init, or you could clone the repo depending on like what you want to do, and then creating that, like putting that key over there, and then you're fine. You could still use it and understand, like it's the same code, like nothing changed. It's just really where is the model you're talking with.
So just to recap, you can try all of this without even need to open Visual Studio, because you are going, do the ACD init or app or the command that you have, and then it's going to clone the repo. You are going to have everything there. And it's also, if you have an Azure account, it's going to basically provision the services that you need. But if you want to, you can go to the code and you can start to play around to understand the code. And even an example, if you don't have an Azure account or you don't have access in Azure yet to the OpenAI services, you can change to use the OpenAI APIs.
Yep.
Perfect. Because what I also really like about this, a couple of things, is that first, OpenAI, if you go to, I think it's platform.openai.com, you are going to be able to create an account. They give you $18 for 3 months. They give you some money. I can't remember the model there, but they give you some free money that you can spend this, or you can try this if you want. You can do the same with Azure. You can create a test account in Azure and you can test it there. So there are different options there that we have to test. But what I really like about this is that in literally 50 lines of code, you can get the sense of how, if you want to do like this, a summarization of a text, this is the ABC that you need to do. This is the important part. This is what is explained. And in 5 seconds, you are up and running, and you can run this. And as Frank mentioned, you can change the prompt. And instead of 10 words, use 5, or do it in Spanish, do it in French, or add something, use emotion, use a funny style. Whatever you want, this is a great way to test things. But also, and this is also the important part for me, is that right now the sample that you are showing is using the Azure OpenAI library. Yes. But we have the 2 samples embedded in the documents. If you want to use Semantic Kernel, and I will probably ask Jordan to explain a little about how you have also the option to use Semantic Kernel if you want, there is the option to use Semantic Kernel. That's correct, Jordan?
Yeah, that was one. We actually need to get this is a good way to hold me accountable to blog posts too. We've got to get out a blog post update with the samples here, where we've got the semantic kernel version of these as well. Let me also, I'll click the share my screen. I don't know that I need to for showing you what the docs here, but if you want to bring mine up real quick, this will help get an idea of There we go. So you can see now in the documentation, we've got the example that Frank just walked through with the Azure OpenAI SDK, and then you've got the Semantic Kernel version that you could switch over to and work with. And at this level of sort of functionality we're doing with walking you through kind of getting started with prompts, also deploying these up to Azure, you'll find them to be very similar flows. We got the same AZD up guidance here, just run with .NET Run. And then the code is very similar with Semantic Kernel. You know, there's a little bit of a difference with the builder pattern and dependency injection in the mix, but otherwise you're doing the same sorts of things as far as building up the same prompts, slightly different syntax in a few places, but it's also the same short quick start. You know, if you start with this example here of summarizing text. So you could use either one of those. Semantic Kernel can kind of be a nice starting point because of the abstractions over other parts of the system. As you get more complex in building up your apps, you may layer in these things called vector stores or vector databases to work, bring in your own data. SK has some benefits there of making it easier for you to have one set of abstractions to work with rather than having to learn different SDKs for each vector store. So there's reasons like that it's nice to start with SK. But yeah, we got both versions are in these quick starts now.
Which is great, because I am going to bring one of the questions that we have right now from Mark, and he was asking if any of these can be done using local models or Llama versus Azure. And hey, Semantic Kernel, I think is, and this is my preference, and this is what I do, is a great way, in example, to do this, because instead of register an Azure OpenAI completion service or a chat completion service or something like, or test generation, I can't remember the detailed name, there are extensions. There are also third-party samples and more that basically generate this against a local model. I use also Llama to run my Mistral or my Llama 2 models. And yes, you can tweak this here. It's not part of the samples right now. It's not part of the quick start. I think because it will take a little longer to set up and deploy everything. It's not going to be the 5-minute to wow. But you can do this if you want, also using an example Semantic Kernel.
I think, didn't you share a video kind of playing around with that recently, Bruno? Or I thought I saw on Twitter you commented a little bit about some experiments you were doing at this exact sort of thing locally, right?
Yes, the whole idea is that we have, and we are probably going to talk about this in the future, we have a set of .NET Smart components. This is UI component. If you think about the next generation combo box that you can start to type, and it's going to use vector search to analyze the context there and more, that is was using services on the cloud to run the completions and more. And there is an option there to use a local model here. So I run my Llama 2 model locally, connected these services here, and hey, up and running, you are there. And as I said, it's an option. I think we have these models also available in Azure. So if you run locally with Llama 2 and you are happy, and then you want to scale, you want to move to the cloud, you can easily switch your endpoint, localhost, whatever port, versus the endpoint that you have in Azure, go in there. So there is an option there. There is a complete an option. And yes, our main set of samples are focusing on Azure services or OpenAI APIs. But if you want to move forward and try something new and test, hey, it's not a very complicated coding. You can do more. Probably an advanced topic. We are going to host a session probably in the future about that. But yeah, you can do it, yes.
Yeah, that might be good. Real, just occurring to me, because I know we've got folks I'm very familiar with coming from all different places and experience levels, like myself coming in, 5 months ago. Some of these terms like Llama, I'd be like, what is that? So I think it might be worth real quick, just the high level, real quick summary. Local models like you were just talking about, Bruno, like Llama 2, those are ones you could actually take open source model and run on your local machine. If you got, enough GPU or some of the right oomph, it'll use local processing power, run the whole model locally, and you can do some experimentation and things all just on your own device. And a benefit in that, sometimes there's different specializations of different models. Some work better than others for different sorts of tasks. So as you move along your journey, it becomes common to try out like, how does Llama 2 handle this? Or maybe some other specialized local models or things you get through a service called Hugging Face. You'll hear mentioned a lot. Llama would be is a I'll call it a tool or a local service you can run. They've got it on Mac and a preview on Windows that allows you to, it makes it easier to, I don't have the commands in my mind, but if I think from the JavaScript world or NuGet, you know, where I do something locally to install a package, Ollama makes it easy to acquire the models locally, and then gives you a common API that you can go through to interact with these models, abstracting some of the differences away. I think it's an OpenAI type API. I can't remember the details right now, but basically that's one here that's where these tools come into play. And like with Semantic Kernel, you can do some work to go against those local models. I think you can do it with Azure OpenAI SDK as well. That's, I don't know if you have some additional details, Frank or Bruno, that you'd add on those. You know, definitely catch me in my summaries if you got a little deeper understanding.
No, sorry, I lost the connection for 1 second. I have this amazing, you need to restart, update, to do some updates, and I am trying to not to click that
Classic.
one. But no, hey, the part, and literally I lost 10 seconds. Yes, imagine that you download the model locally, you run. Ollama is probably the most popular tool to run local models right now. It works great. It works in Mac, Linux, Windows. It has a huge repository. So every time that there is a new amazing model there, the Ollama team has it part of the repository. They are working with Hugging Face and more. So it's a great, great way to do this. And I am going to also thanks, I see that Liam and Luis are there helping on the comments to basically, Eric was asking about, hey, what is the ACD command? So understand what is the Git repo and the ACD command. And the whole idea is that, yes, ACD is basically literally provision everything, help you to have this ACD command and then run the project, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. The whole idea is to have everything up and running in seconds.
I think one part of the question was possibly wondering which Git repo Frank used in the example. So if you walk, we shared a link to the blog post. Ultimately, that will take you to .NET/AI-samples. And this was the repo in which these quick starts live, the completed version of these quick starts. That was the repo that Frank pulled down with AZD in it that allowed it to bring it locally. So this is the repo .NET/AI-samples that we used for these quick starts.
I did.
I just shared the link on the screen.
Perfect.
I couldn't. I'm not allowed on the chat to share links.
I just put the link on the screen. Is .NET AI sample. So here you are.
Yeah.
And Jordan, someone is asking here if you can hide the pop-up button, the pop-up that you have in the bottom of your screen.
Look at that. There's a pop-up just sitting there that I totally ignored. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. No problem. Here to help. So we have and by the way, I like the repo because the repo is kind of the downside code of the blog post that we have. And if you scroll a little down there, you can see that there are the 5 scenarios there, and you also have the 2 coming soon, which I also like because this is kind of a teaser. Can you scroll down a little?
I'll just slowly scroll through the page here.
There it is. So you have the 5 scenarios, and then you have the coming soons. So this is also a great place to see, okay, if you want to know more, if you want to see what else are we working, here you will see the scenarios that we have and the coming soons. And in the beginning, we also have an example, the Milbus, the Quadrant, vector databases, and more.
Yeah, the team is definitely working in the open, like embracing the open source project. So we're working on the open. Like at some point, some people were entering issues because it was like I'm having the issue trying to do this, and like we figured that out, and like we just like smooth those little difficulties. And yes, this in the repo, it's definitely more light. If to have the best explanation of like what's happening, it's on the documentation. But like there's still steps and everything, like so like if you open the repo, you still have enough to like roll and understand what you need to do, but there's more details obviously in the doc.
Yeah, that's definitely the other work going on here is the evolution of this section in our docs. Right now it says Azure AI apps, but you'll see this turning into, as the URL implies, a little tiny on my screen, but .NET/AI for a home for docs. So there's work. I was even reviewing one doc in this space that we'll start sharing out more and more documentation around core concepts, but with a slant toward .NET developers a little bit more as well to help you with tying these together. Start with the quick starts, but you're going to see more coming in around the edges. I did just last week this .NET AI ecosystem doc to help list out the official SDKs and resources that are out there that you can use today. So yeah, along with the quick starts, the other exciting part of these is building out our .NET home for AI documentation out in the docs.
Yes, there are so many things happening at the same time, so many new tools, frameworks, SDKs, and more that is a challenge to try to find the right way. That's why we appreciate your feedback. We appreciate questions, feedback, and more, because that's where we really want to put our focus to make the life everybody happy. So in example here, we have Stallone, I will say the name, which is the difference between Semantic Kernel and Azure SDK. And the whole idea, what we just explained, and Frank and Jordan, feel free to jump in if you want, is that, hey, the Azure SDK, as the name is there, is focusing mostly in work with services in Azure, the Azure OpenAI SDK specifically. Semantic Kernel is kind of a layer on top of that will allow you to work, if you want, with Azure OpenAI services, or it will also allow you to work with OpenAI services, or is going to allow you to work with other services. You can extend this SDK, Semantic Kernel. Also, Semantic Kernel has other features, like allows you to do some planning. This is a completely different conversation, but you probably need to think that the Azure OpenAI SDK is an SDK focusing on helping connection with Azure OpenAI services. Semantic Kernel is on top of that, providing that connection, other connection to other providers, and more functionalities.
No, I think you will have to do an episode about Semantic Kernel versus or Azure SDK. Like in the red corner, we have.
Yes. Hey, someone also mentioned here if Semantic Kernel is the competitor of LangChain. I never saw competition there. It grows from different ecosystems, grows from different communities, from different needs. There are a lot of places that, yes, they overlap what they are doing, but it's not competition. But yes, I will add into the to-do list for next episode a local language models, and hey, maybe one specifically for Semantic Kernel, because yes, Semantic Kernel is also a super popular .NET framework for these kind of things, and we can probably add it into the list. And oh my God, I am trying to keep up with the comments here so that this. So in example, do we want to see any of the other, or do we want to review the other scenarios? Because we only show the summarization, but at least we can want to mention the other ones. I know that we have 5 right now.
Yeah, well, I can go over the 5 scenarios. So I showed the first one. So that was kind of just taking a long text and summarizing it. And it's all about the team is all about hiking. So just like try to we try to have a team here. The second one, you're kind of like chatting, but like it's the questions are pre-built, but you're chatting with an AI, a specialist AI for hiking, and you say, hey, I want to do a hike, and based on your location and what you want to do as a hike, is it like a long hike, light hike, what you like, whatever, it will make suggestion, and it's really fun. I did so you will see that because I use my location. I live in the Great Montreal area, so I used that. So I knew the places, but change it and put your location because it's a fun fact after. So I was super happy. I look, and then one of the suggestion was something close by, and I was like, "Oh, this is nice, but in spring there's a lot of mosquitoes." And it was saying that, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool! Like it really knows about the place." So I thought it was really interesting. So that I like that those samples are very simple because then it's easy to change and understand better because they are customized to what you know, what you like, and whatever, to understand how it works. The third one, it's kind of a chat again, but we're talking about data. So we're providing data, kind of a journal of your previous hike, and we're asking questions. So like, the AI then like make some agglomeration, calculate, okay, you did like a 5-day hike in Canada or something like that. The fourth example, we're using extension or tools now. So AI is a model, doesn't know about the temperature, the weather. So here we're asking, hey, if the weather is nice, tell me like where I should go hike today. And like then the system will need a tool. So it's using the tool that we are faking, asking for the weather. Obviously the weather is bad. So it's, you know what, weather is not great. And you shouldn't hike today. Initially, when we built that, it would say, oh, instead you should do, and it was making suggestion to like stuff to do inside because it was raining. And I was like, yeah, just like no suggestion, just like focus on like I needed to like make it a little bit more precise. So very interesting to play with those prompts. And the last one, because I thought it was like really interesting and it's very, very powerful. It's using DALL-E. So it's a model that play with images. So in that last sample, it creates postal card to invite your friends on a hike. So just like create a simple hike and like you have fun with the prompt there, like try to make it the way you want. But yeah, so it generates an image. So like if you're running it in the terminal, it will just like give you a link. You click on it to download the image, and you could look at what you just generate. And running it multiple times will create different images because it's generative AI. Yeah, so those are the same 5 samples, and they are the same whatever you're running with the Azure SDK or the in the Quickstart though, like the same if you're using a semantic kernel.
And the tools one that uses native. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Frank. You're about to say.
I was just saying, like like there's a few lines of codes, like you said, Jordan, earlier, that change, but it's mostly the same. Like those samples very introduction level, so like there's not a big change there in the code.
Now, from the .NET perspective, like the tools, that one is going to be. Tools end up being your own C# functions being able to execute. Is that right? Or I don't remember if that's how you use them in this context, but
yes, it's your it used to be called extension. I think it was extension before. Now it's tool. And yeah, so like you're having, so like here you could have something like a local function that calls a real API, but because I didn't want people to pay for to have like an API just to have fun. So that's why we muck the data and like we return, like it's raining today.
Yeah, I like to call that one out because this is where it gets, the AI as an assistant is sometimes that Bright doesn't know the stuff about your own code or the executing and doing things. And that's some of the fun I've seen Matthew, the PM on Semantic Kernel, talk about, where you can kind of get into some really unique things. Is when you can call your own source code. So the function stuff or the tool support, those abilities to call and do things with your own APIs can create some really interesting, powerful opportunities. Just like we've got the bit about context and data. Both of those are where I love that you had those in the initial set of quick starts, because that's where, great, I've got a bunch of prompts, but when you can start to work with your own data or calling your intellectual property, your IP, your APIs that you have in your source, gets like things really open up and tailor to your own needs. So
yeah, that one is
great to have on these quick starts.
Is really a good start before jumping about calling like a real API for your data and something like that, and like integrating AI in your API calls. But yeah, we're trying to keep it simple, so that's why the API is mucked here, just to make it simple. But yeah, I totally agree. Good. And I was thinking, can I make it easy to call a database or something? But then like you need the database or you need an API and like you need to run it. And it was like, it's not simple anymore. So yeah, for those 5 simple scenario, we kept it very, very simple, just so people can understand quickly and jump by themselves. Because there is other samples and tutorial and like other repo that exists with our documentation page with more details, more advanced stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I am jumping into the comments, and there are a couple of interesting ones. Before moving there, just to double check, just to explain a little more. And this is I like to understand this as I am a 5 years old kid. What I really like about using functions in semantic kernel, in example, is that you can literally ask questions. The semantic kernel will register a function, and the function can be a prompt, the function can be a native function like this one. And then when you ask a prompt, when you ask a question to the kernel will decide, okay, I need to call A, B, C, or D in order to get a response. So here you can see that the function is always going to return, it's going to be rainy or drizzle with 15 Celsius degrees. Sorry, we use Celsius. This is what we use in Canada and the rest of the world, I think, not the US. But the question there, the prompt, is in the line 47, where you can see, hey, I live in Montreal, and I'm looking for the moderate intensity hike. Is the weather? So it's going to connect the prompt that you are passing here, is going to understand that you can call this function to get the weather, and you are going to have the answer. And this is also super important because you get the best of calling your local functions, which is probably connected to your data and more, using natural language and the power of the large language model and natural language, which is kind of amazing. I am going to go back to a couple of questions that we have here. So first, Eric was talking about, he mentioned that he's using Windows AI Studio to work with LLMs like Phi2, big fan of Phi2 here, to do things locally. I like it. Yes, Windows AI Studio is an option. As I said, I started to use Olama. I try a couple of tools and I get to Olama, and Olama is my happy place. But yes, Windows AI Studio, if someone wants to test it, as far as I remember, it's an extension for Visual Studio Code. It works really great. It automatically guides you into installing the requirement and more. It works better if you have a powerful GPU because it relies a lot on the GPU, but it's great. And yes, Phi2 was one of the options there. And Phi2 is the open source model released by the Microsoft Research some time ago. I can't remember when. It's kind of new. It's kind of the evolution of Phi 1.5 to this Phi2. It's a super small one in terms of size, but it's super powerful. Anything that Frank or Jordan wants to add? Have you tried Windows AI Studio, which is literally not part of today's talk?
No, I did try one thing locally, but without any success. I think it was early bits. Well, in fact, it was because you shared with me, Bruno. Was like, I'll try that. It's super cool. You look so excited and was like, okay, let's give it a try. And I was like, not sure what to do, what to pick. And but that's one thing I was curious. So I understand that it's great to run it locally, but it must be taxing a lot your computer. Do you need like a very powerful computer? Like, so if you have like a student computer, like, like the family computer that is just, it's okay to do homework and stuff, is it the cloud a better solution? Like, what is it? Am I clear in my question?
Yeah, I mean, it works, but yes, I will also say that in order to run these models locally, you need a decent computer. You need some, even if you don't have a powerful GPU, it's going to use your CPU, but it's going to use a lot of resources. So that's a balance there about that.
It works. It's just you need to be
yes, it works.
Yeah, but it's totally like, and it's, I don't see that as bad. It's an option. Right? So if you have a powerful computer, great. If you don't, then you can still do it and not spend credit in Azure because maybe you don't have a subscription or something like that. You just need to be a little bit more patient. I was just curious to know, like is it like, yeah, no, like you need to have like a super gamer machine to be to run it, to run the simple.
You can even run it in a Raspberry Pi if you want.
Oh, okay.
But and I write something there. Don't do this. But the prompt that locally is answering in 10 seconds is going to run for 4 minutes. But it's going to run.
Yeah.
So yes, these models are not designed for error.
For someone who want to try it, still, like if it's not a Raspberry Pi, I'm guessing a lot computer of our audience here is like way more powerful than a Raspberry Pi. So I'm guessing they will have a good result. Like even if it takes 30 seconds or a little bit more to like run your test when you're trying to learn and experiment, it's okay. Like you're not running anything in production.
Yeah, I've got like Bruno was saying, that another coworker was playing around with working on a machine with like no GPUs, and it worked. You'd send a prompt, and go grab your coffee, come back 5 minutes later, it would respond so you can get by. But it was also kind of interesting. I think I saw some post about where there's some models being optimized or some tool chains being optimized for improving running on CPUs. So this is going to be an interesting space to watch evolving there. Today the GPUs are the solid gold for the performance, but I think we'll see some interesting changes to our answer as time goes by, maybe even over the next year or so. But yeah, some beefier hardware if you want to move fast.
And if you want performance, you could go in Azure, and it's not that costly, honestly. If you just run it like for a day, except just to learn, you won't spend much on that.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, I have another question here from Dev Genesis, and I'm going to share the link in the meantime in the chat, saying that if we know any production grade application made by Semantic Kernel, Microsoft, or big techs, I will suggest to go to Semantic Kernel blog. Let me share the link here in the chat, because
We have the same link.
I know that they have, there it is. Let me hide this. Every 3 or 4 in the last blogs that they have, every 3 or 4 articles, literally the first one is a customer case study. So they talk about customers that are currently using this. So if you want to have this as a reference, you can have this. And hey, you can even have my old friends, Big Tech or Accenture, they are doing these kind of things. But I don't know. If I answer that question in example, I will probably go to the Semantic Kernel blog.
Yep. Sophia is doing some great posts over there. She's PM new into that team and just going like crazy on helping to line up customer case studies and documentation work. So that blog is a great place for this info right now.
Yes, and they keep a lot of info there, not only about the customer scenarios, but also the future of Semantic Kernel. They cover all of the versions in Net, Python, Java, TypeScript, and more. So there is a lot of things happening there. I think if you want to really start to use it, take a look from time to time to the blog, because there is a lot of information that is updated super, super fast there. And let me go, okay, more questions here. We have, let me go to the filter, there it is. We have here, again, Dev Genesis, saying that make a RAG chatbot with, I will say 10 line of code, with kernel memory, semantic kernel package, and OpenAI default functions, really blow your mind, vector DB setup, and yes, that's one of the ideas that we have right now. One of the projects that we have right now in our table is to create a super nice and easy way to understand how you can create this, a RAG application, a RAG chatbot using probably semantic kernel. But hey, thanks for sharing. Can you share also the sources of where you created? Or if you have a public repo with this, happy to take a look. I don't know, Jason, Frank, any thoughts on this? Because RAG is still super hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, RAG being the suddenly my brain just I hit a fault interrupt or something. I can't suddenly remember the name right now. RAG is the acronym for the technique of incorporating your own data. So that's augmented generation is all I can come up with right now. If you guys want to rescue me real quick on the acronym.
Retrieve augmented, yes.
Thank you. Retrieval augmented generation. That'll be in your incorporated a format that's kind of incorporated in the Quickstarts as far as just the idea of working with your data, right? Frank, maybe not the using a vector store, which is that next level of detail, but the technique of retrieving, augmenting your LLM prompts with some of your own data to better tailor it to your own domain. That technique, RAG, is one you'll see in a lot of places and in a lot of our docs and samples as well.
And we went in like it is a chat, but because all those samples are console application, so like there's no UI or fancy or anything, because we were trying to have it so someone who want to learn could see everything. Remember, like the goal was really to make it so it's easy to understand what's happening. So like there's fancy control. That's why like it's a chat, but if like you see like, okay, like you will be asking that, and like we know some kind of like what will be the answer. So like then like the second question or the other player will ask this and that. So we kind of like hard code the chat a little bit, but it is a chat. So it is. Yeah, you're right. It is that.
Yes, and to also share some context in case someone doesn't know what RAG is, the way that I like to explain RAG is the large language models are amazing. They are super great to work with language. But when you want to use specific set of data, and the popular example is like, last year when we started to ask questions to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT has the initial code, I think it was June 2021 or something like this. So if you ask question to ChatGPT, something happened after that, it's not going to answer, and everything happened. So there is a set of architectures, patterns, and more to use the language models to work with language, but to also provide data that is going to be your data, your up-to-date data, or whatever you want, that is going to be the way to connect this. So RAG is one of the most popular one, which I think right now is probably the most popular one, where we use kind of a memory like kernel memory in semantic kernel. You can use this, you can use a vector database and more. And hey, the whole idea is the large language model is going to handle the language part, and then we're going to have a repository with the data that's going to connect to the model to have the conversation. But you're going to have your data up to date. There are a lot of ways to do this. Not a lot of ways, but there are different ways to do this. We want to share, and we are going to share soon what we provide, kind of a pattern example of how you can do that.
We do have, I won't tangent too far, but I will say in the, yeah, you'll see some core concepts here that we're working on, documented samples, but we do have some resources today with the, so you'll see that we put these out before in this AI samples repo. We also link off to this Azure search sample and eShop that both incorporate some level of RAG and how they're implemented. Yes. One using Azure Search, the other I think was using Postgres. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And we've got a blog post out there. We can share a link separately in here that Stephen Tobe put out back in like September that also introduced the topic. But yeah, we're incorporating it into our docs now as well. And so you'll hear more on that, and probably even talk deep dive in those docs with a future, one of these episodes.
Yes, we may have in the quick start samples, we may add a new ones and update the blog post with a new blog post with the new scenarios. I'm guessing that RAG is going to be one of the newest one. I have a question. We have a question here. Oh my God, we only have 10 minutes. From Eric about AI is all about the data. And which is the most challenging, retraining your model or inserting into your user chat context? I have a question. I have an answer here, but anyone wants to take this? Because I will say that retraining a model is tricky in terms of only few people can train a model like a GPT model or even a 5 model or a Mistral model. So retrain a model is, this case, this large language model is kind of tricky. Using a pattern like chat, like RAG, and also specific prompt engineering techniques, you can add some context and personalization, but it's a learning process right now. I don't know. Frank, Jordan, any thoughts on this one?
I would just say,
yeah, go ahead, Freddie.
An expert, but I would say it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. There's a scenario where like having a model that is smart will be a priority instead of having like inserting last second your data in or something like that. I like I said, I think it depends.
Yeah, the depth of where my knowledge goes that I haven't Jordan's journey hasn't gone further into other things I've heard of, like fine-tuning models. The ideas of taking something and further tailoring them, but I don't think it gets in the same space here. From what I've seen for the many cases, usually the adding context to your prompt is more straightforward or easier than the work of like doing some sort of, certainly you don't retrain foundational models like GPT-4, but further tailoring or working on other models, it's a different space I haven't dived into, but I generally from like samples and the level I'm looking at, it's augmenting is always more straightforward than getting into the ML space of tuning.
maybe we think about that this way because we're a developer. If we were like all data scientists, maybe it was like, yeah, no, retrain because like coding is way harder. I don't know.
Yeah, one of those that some folks, and feel free to comment too, I'm probably listening on the side, are like, no, the other way, possibly.
Yes, and hey, that's also important. That I think we mentioned this last time in the episode. We also mentioned this in the Latin America episode. I'm going to bring it today. We are not, every time that you use an Azure OpenAI service, in example, or use a model in Azure, we are not using that data to retrain the model. Your data is your data. The data that you use in Azure is your data. We don't train those models. So that's also super important to know and understand. What we provide is pattern, reference, and more if you want to connect a model with data or an Azure search or more, but we not train the models. So that's something that is nice to share all the time. This is one that is kind of outside of my knowledge here. That if we have any tools to use AI like Torch Studio, I will probably need to ask around. I don't know if you, Frank, or Jordan knows. I use a lot of PyTorch long time ago, but not sure if we have any tool there to support this.
Okay. That maybe in the space. So in the space of ML, because I honestly did a quick search on Torch Studio, and I see that there is some level there of like GUIs over PyTorch, things that get in the space of being able to work with what Luis was differentiating as like machine learning, and in that space of building models. There are things in the .NET world with a great history with ML.NET, lots of samples and tools for doing things with models as a model builder you can find on the website as well that might be in that space, but we'd have to defer to some other experts on the real direct answer around Torch Studio. Would be a good follow-up one. There will be some experiments we've got in here, for example, for folks interested at that level of detail in this AI samples repo. There are some experiments like working with the Phi model running in .NET with things like Torch Sharp. My knowledge can't go much deeper there, but there's definitely an answer around ML for a level of work you can do in .NET you could explore, but I'll stop there.
Hey, I know Phi, I use Phi locally in Semantic Kernel. I write this in the educational blog, but I'm thinking that probably in the next episode will be about local models. So thanks for the clarity, Jordan. And as I said, yes, as we said, we may want to ask other person about this. And hey, didn't know about Torch Studio. It's kind of a new
resident
one.
Expert Luis is chiming in on the comments there with not that he's aware of for that direct question about Torch Studio. So thank you, Luis.
Hey, thanks, Luis. Yes, he's there. I was completely sure that he was on vacation. I hope that we didn't bring him back.
Yeah, this is not a way to spend your vacation with.
Yes, and hey, we are getting at the end of the hour. I am going to share one more time the link. If you want to get access to the Getting Started, the quick starts here, this is the link, super short one. Strongly, if you are new here, this is a great place to start. You're going to see the most common scenarios, summarization, chat, generating images and more. So take a look there. Take a look at what you have. And I see some more questions around semantic kernel, local models. Okay, probably 80% sure next session is going to be around local models and semantic kernel. Let's build something around that. But going back here, thanks, Frank and Jordan, for the support today. Also, by the way, they are the two main people behind all of this, so thanks a lot. And I hope that everybody, please take a look there and let us know what you want. We are here to help. This is a community stand-up. So if you have some feedback, requests, or more, please let us know.
That was a lot of fun. Great to see everybody here.
That's cool. I put in the chat because I think we forgot to mention it, but the model used in the Quickstart was GPT Turbo and DALL-E. Just in case people.
Perfect. GPT 3.5 Turbo and DALL-E 3. Oh, yes. Thanks for sharing. But by the way, this is also a great place if you want to try with other models, like GPT-4. You can try, change a couple of lines there, and it's going to work.
Yep.
So getting at the end of the hour, thanks to everyone. I see a lot of thanks from Eric, Deb, Luis, Camis, and everyone here. See you next one in a couple of weeks. And once again, thanks everyone. Goodbye.
Take care, all.